I tried to edit it, and I couldn't. I'm going to try to get through as much of it as I possibly can because every American needs to hear this. This is from Archbishop Vigano. If I'm not mistaken, Vigano is the guy who has been saying the Vatican Bank and the ring of homosexual pedophile priests is not being uprooted. He's been trying to ring the bell that there is a deep state in the church that is evil. But I want you to hear what he is talking about because he is accurate. Now, he is couching this as good and evil, which I would as well. But what he's talking about politically is happening. Listen to this. An open letter to President Trump. Mr. President, allow me to address you at this hour in which fate of the whole world is being threatened by a global conspiracy against God and humanity. I write you as an archbishop, as the former apostolic nuncio of the United States of America. I'm writing you in the midst of the silence of both civil and religious authorities. May you accept these words of mine as a voice of one crying out in the desert. As I said when I wrote my letter to you in June, this historic moment sees the forces of evil aligned in a battle without quarter against the forces of good. Forces of evil that appear powerful and organized as they oppose the children of light, who are disoriented and disorganized, abandoned by their temporal and spiritual leaders. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Daily, we sense the attacks multiplying of those who want to destroy the very basis of society, the natural family, respect for human life, love of country, freedom of education, freedom of business. We see heads of nations and religious leaders pandering to this suicide of Western culture and its Christian soul, while the fundamental rights of the citizens and believers are denied in the name of a health emergency that is revealing itself more and more as fully an instrument to the establishment of an inhuman, faceless tyranny. The global plan called The Great Reset is underway. This is my next book, and it is coming out. We're going to see how the election goes. We're close to finishing it, but if we can get it out before Christmas, we will. I don't know if we'll make that. But the Great Reset is real. This is not a conspiracy. It is real. Its architect, the Archbishop, or the Cardinal writes, is the global elite that wants to subdue all of humanity, imposing coercive measures with which to drastically limit individual freedoms and those of entire populations. In several nations, this plan has already been approved and financed. In others, it's still in an early stage. Behind the world leaders who are the accomplices and executors of this infernal project, there are unscrupulous characters who finance the World Economic Forum and Event 201, promoting their agenda. If you watch my show, you know what the World Economic Forum and Event 201 did. If you don't, I urge you to go back and look at those shows. They're Wednesday night specials. Look at those shows and then do your own homework on them. All of the videotape of these meetings is out online. The purpose of the Great Reset is the imposition of a health dictatorship aiming at the imposition of liberticidal measures hidden behind tempting promises of ensuing a universal income and canceling individual debt. The price of these concessions from the International Monetary Fund will be the renunciation of private property and an adherence to a program of vaccination against COVID-19 and COVID-21 promoted by Bill Gates in collaboration with the main pharmaceutical groups. Beyond the enormous economic interests that motivate the promoters of this Great Reset, the imposition of the vaccination will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and a digital ID, with the consequent contact tracing of the population of the entire world. Those who do not accept these measures will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all of their assets will be confiscated. Mr. President, I imagine you're already aware that in some countries the Great Reset will be activated between the end of this year and the first trimester of 2021. For this purpose, further lockdowns are planned, which will officially be justified by a supposed second and third wave of the pandemic. You are also well aware of the means that have been deployed to sow panic and legitimize draconian limitations on individual liberties. They are artfully provoking a worldwide economic crisis. In the intention of its architects, this crisis will serve to make the recourse of nations to the Great Reset irreversible, thereby giving the final blow to a world whose existence and very memory they want to completely cancel. But this world, Mr. President, includes people, affections, institutions, faith, culture, traditions, and ideals. People and values that do not act like robots, do not obey like machines because they are endowed with a soul and a heart, because they are tied together by a spiritual bond that drives its strength from above, from that God that our adversaries want to challenge, just as Lucifer did at the beginning of time. Many people, as we all well know, are annoyed by this reference to the clash between good and evil and the use of apocalyptic overtones, which, according to them, exasperates the spirits and sharpens divisions. This is not surprising that the enemy, listen to this line, that the enemy is angered at being discovered just when he believes that he has reached the citadel he seeks to conquer undisturbed. What is surprising, however, is that there is no one to sound the alarm. The reaction of the deep state to those who denounce its plan is broken and incoherent and but understandable. Just when the complicity of the mainstream media has succeeded in making the transition to the New World Order almost painless and unnoticed, all sorts of deceptions, scandals, and crimes are now coming to light. A few months ago, it was easy to smear as conspiracy theorists those who denounce these terrible plans, which we now see being carried out down to the smallest detail. No one, up until last February, would have ever thought that in our cities, citizens would be arrested simply for wanting to walk down the street, to breathe, to want to keep their business open, to want to go to church on Sunday. Yet now it is happening all over the world, even in picture postcard Italy, that many Americans consider to be a small enchanted country, with its ancient monuments, its churches and charming cities, its characteristic villages. And while the politicians are barricaded inside their palaces, giving out decrees like Persian satraps, businesses failing, shops are closing, and people are prevented from living, traveling, working, and praying. The disastrous psychological consequence of this operation are already being seen, beginning with the suicides of desperate entrepreneurs and of our children, segregated from friends and classmates told to follow their classes while sitting at home alone in front of a computer. It is now clear that the one who occupies the chair of Peter, that's the Pope, has betrayed his role from the very beginning in order to defend and promote the globalist ideology, supporting the agenda of the deep church who chose him from his ranks. Mr. President, you have clearly stated you want to defend the nation, one nation under God, fundamental liberties, and non-negotiable values that are denied and fought against today. It is you, dear President, who are the one who opposes the deep state, the final assault of the children of darkness. For this reason, it is necessary that all people of goodwill be persuaded of the importance of the imminent election, not so much for the sake of this or that political program, but because of the general inspiration of your action that best embodies, in this particular historic context, that world, our world, which they want to cancel by means of lockdowns. Your adversary is also our adversary. It is the enemy of the human race, he who is the murderer from the beginning. Around you are gathered with faith and courage those who consider you the final garrison against the world dictatorship. The alternative is to vote for a person who is manipulated by the deep state, gravely compromised by scandals and corruption, who will do to the United States that which Jorge Bergoglio is doing to the church, the Prime Minister Conte to Italy, President Macron to France, Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain, and so on. The blackmailable nature of Joe Biden, just like that of the prelates of the Vatican's magic circle, will expose him to be used unscrupulously, allowing illegitimate powers to interfere in both domestic politics as well as international balances. It is obvious that those who manipulate him already have someone worse than him ready, with whom they will replace him as soon as the opportunity arises. In the midst of this bleak picture, the apparent unstoppable advance of the invisible enemy is an element of hope. The adversary does not know how to love. It does not understand that there is not enough to assure a universal income or cancel mortgages in the order to subjugate the masses and convince them to be branded like cattle. This people, which for so long have endured the abuses of a hateful and tyrannical power, is rediscovering that it does have a soul. It is understanding that it is not willing to exchange its freedom for the homogenization and cancelization of its identity. It's beginning to understand the value of familial and social ties and the bonds of faith and culture that unite all honest people. The Great Reset is destined to fail because those who planned it do not understand that there are still people ready to take to the streets to defend their rights, protect their loved ones, give a future to their children and grandchildren. The leveling inhumanity of the globalist project will shatter miserably in the face of firm and courageous opposition of the children of light. The enemy has Satan on its side, he who only knows how to hate. But on our side, we have the Lord Almighty. Place your trust in the Lord, strengthened by the words of the Apostle Paul. I can do all things in him who strengthens me. To be an instrument of divine providence is a great responsibility, for which you, Mr. President, will certainly receive all the graces of state that you need, since they are being fervently implored for by many of the people who support you with their prayers. That is from the Archbishop Carlo Viango to the President of the United States, and it is very clear, and I echo his words.